this is Charlie Mato-Toyela with another video on Native American flute making. This kind of flute we're going to make today is something that I've had lots of you ask for, and then finally Luca in Serbia asked me, and I thought I would mention thank you so much for finally getting me to do this for you guys. What we're going to make today is two different types of eagle whistles. One type of eagle whistle which will be a single tube, and another type which will use two chambers. You can use just about anything to make this. It's a similar procedure that we make our red cedar eagle whistles, and I know a lot of you out there are grabbing your pens and papers as quick as you can because you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm going to make these. Let me tell you, there's madness in making over 100 of them, okay? So, but I'm never fear. Like I say, if you guys want to start making them, that's fantastic. You know, there's more the merrier as far as I'm concerned. This is a clay eagle whistle, similar to the type that they've made in Central America for quite some time, probably some thousands of years. This one's made by our buddy Samuel. Thanks, Samuel. There's a little gift from him. This one here is, like I say, a great whistle. It is made out of clay and has been painted and designed to look kind of like the originals quite a bit as well. I really like it a lot. Got a neat little string holder here in the back. But just to show you what this guy sounds like, got probably too loud for the camera, but it's got 3 sound chambers, and each of the chambers here are like a bulb shape inside, and you see underneath, you might see a little bit better, and it allows you a real clear maximum tonal sound of a eagle, which is kind of cool. The ones that we make, our red cedar ones, only have 2 chambers, and they sound really amazing. Even my friends in Mexico believe that they're really miraculous. But it's because there's things you can do with red cedar that you can't do with clay. Plus, I use a measuring system and a tuning system, as I mentioned in previous videos, to create these bad boys. So, having said all that, I'm going to set Samuel's whistle right here. You can take a look at it as you need to. I'm going to try to remember to give measurements both in millimeters as well as inches this time. And those of you that are using inches in the UK, or excuse me, using millimeters in the UK or in Australia, shame on you. Inches came from there. Listen to me, bad country language. Anyway, so the first thing we're going to do is make a single chamber eagle whistle. And this single chamber one is going to be the same system and same type that Native American people made out of eagle bones for a long time, with just a few modifications. And one of the modifications is the size of the chamber is a little bit smaller, and another modification is the way we're going to make our sound hole is a little bit different. But for the most part, like I say, if you can just envision this being like an eagle bone, you know, it's pretty much what it was. So one thing we're going to do is we're going to look at this piece of sawgrass I have. You might have a drinking straw or an aluminum tube, an arrow shaft, oh my gosh, a number of things. This dude here in its full length is about 72 millimeters, or basically almost 3 inches, not quite 3 inches. But it doesn't really matter on this guy so much because we're going to use some generic measuring system, whereas with our 2-chamber eagle whistle we're going to be a little more specific on that one. And if you hear a little sizzle in the background, that's my fire I've got going. I'm going to go ahead and grab it, and we're going to put a little hole, a square hole with my square burning tool right about here, which I know you guys are so concerned about the measurements. On this guy it doesn't really matter as much as it will on the other one, but we're going about 22 millimeters there, basically 3/4 of an inch, and that's where we're going to put our hole. So grab my burning rod, just going to go ahead and heat this little dude up. Watch those fingers. If I had a dime for every time I burnt myself, we wouldn't be making videos right now. Probably be on a boat in the Bahamas. Anyway, so just to show you what it is that we did here, is basically I wanted to put a little bit of a slant on the side where the air is going to be directed towards. And not really a whole lot to that, pretty simple to do. And then we have a plug that I made previously. One thing you want to do is make sure that when your dowel, when you're sanding on it, that it is the right size and diameter. If you notice, it's not the same size as my dowel here that I started out with. This is like a 3/8, which is my general size, because sawgrass comes in so many shapes and sizes. I'll sand this other stuff down to fit it. But you just need to make it where it would fit in there snugly. If it fits too snug, you might want to sand it a little bit more, or go to a completely different size dowel, because the dowel being too large will split your sawgrass if that's what you're using. Now, a lot of you at home too have asked me about sawgrass and where to find it and all this stuff, which is great. I mean, certainly if I come to your hometown, even if it was in Serbia, I'd probably spot some from a mile away, and you'd be thinking, well, I didn't know that was there. That's my cousin so-and-so's house. But anyway, one rule on, I guess, collecting any kind of sawgrass or bamboo or river cane or any of that stuff: either A, ask permission, or B, make sure it's a permitted or safe place to do so. That's really more of a disclaimer, because I haven't always followed that rule myself. Yes, I have. Okay, anyway. So I've got my little plug, and I cut it at a slant. Now, to tell you how long the slant is, what angle it's at, I could, it's about a 18 to 20 degree angle, just a little bit more than the actual angle that creates lift. I forget what that is. Somebody post that on here, 17.2 or something. Anyway, we're not making an airplane. The length of this plug is almost non-necessary for me to tell you. It's an inch, or almost 26 millimeters, but that doesn't really matter either, because I'm going to wind up sanding some of it off. But the plug needs to be a nice little slant, and instead of worrying about what angle it is, I would suggest to try making it several different angles, see which one works. That's how I found out. Let's see what happens. So it sounds like not really a whole lot of fun there, but what I'm going to do is grab my burning tool, still square, and we're going to go down here and make a reasonably large sized hole. It's a square hole. Normally I would make a round one there, but this is a quick video to show you guys how to do something cool. Let's see what it sounds like. If we experiment a little bit on this little plug, we could actually make it much louder. And one other thing that makes it much louder is this hole that you put in it. Now, I'm going to tell you the measurement of this hole again, but keep in mind, 1,000 years ago, most, but not necessarily all, most Native Americans didn't have a caliper. Some of them may have. Some of them may have had tools that would have helped us out a lot more today than these, but we lost a lot of that kind of stuff. Let's see. Looks like we're doing about 5 millimeters wide. Not really completely necessary. And it's really, this guy here needs to be about 5 millimeters long too, but it's not right now. It's more like 4. So I'm going to make it a little bit larger, which will make this whistle much louder. And at least I hope it does. Also going to bring my slanted edge back a little bit. And if you guys are thinking, I don't have burning tools. Well, remember that video we made making a flute in the park, right? You don't have to have burning tools. This little file here works just fine for all of this stuff. I could have drilled the hole here. It would take me an extra couple of minutes, but it would have done a finer job than my burning tool does, believe it or not. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with hand tools that those of us who do 50 at a time things may use a quicker method, but you might be happier with the hand tool's results. Usually they, as a general rule of thumb, stuff made with a hand tool usually turns out nicer than stuff not. So let's see what happens. Sounds a lot like a hawk or an eagle. I'm going to show you one last little trick here. Once again, this is more advanced techniques. In case you're wondering what I'm doing and why I'm off the camera right now. Say hi, right hand. Hi. Happy little flutes. I'm heating up an X-Acto knife that I use as a burning tool. It's not really that hot anymore either. You'd be surprised how fast the heat dissipates. But just hot enough. Kind of neat. Anyway, so that's one. And if you're wondering how you're going to solidify this sucker or get them in there, here's just a general purpose bottle of super glue, known in other countries as Crazy Glue. Its original name brand, it's sold here in the US for a while. Had a couple people ask me for these specifically, which I'm not quite sure why, but just something to do maybe. It's a good little whistle though. Let me see. Just checking some things. So let's see. Last time. So that's just one tube chamber. Kind of cool. Like I say, neat little guy. I put the little sound playing hole here approximately 1 inch or 25 millimeters away from this hole. And just to give you an idea, we're talking, let's see, 23 millimeters or 3/4 of an inch. And then from here to there, basically 1 inch or 25 millimeters from this guy to this guy. And this mouthpiece distance doesn't matter as much. Mine is 3/4 of an inch. And did I say 23 or 25? Let me see there. 25. And 23 is really not 3/4 of an inch. I know somebody's going to correct me on that. It's more like 7/8-ish. But anyway, so none of this stuff really matters too much as long as you've got a tube that's smaller than your little finger and you've got a little sound hole down here and a plating hole up there. Basic, simple, easy to do stuff. Now, the next one is going to be more like our more complex ones. And I'm going to show you. Normally, when I make them out of sawgrass like this, which I don't sell, please don't ask me for these. They're usually gifts for really special people. I'm not saying that you guys aren't special, but this is my gift to you. It's how to make it. So, usually, I super glue these guys together, which I'm going to go ahead and do really quick like, just for the sake of holding it the convenient way while I'm working on it. Half the time I'll make one of these without gluing it together first. Why am I asking super glue, you say? The answer is in the question. It dries really fast. And honestly, it holds these kind of things okay, but not as well as regular wood glue, which I will usually use also in addition, but it seems like it's got it already, which is great. So basically we have two tubes here. Once again, the measurement doesn't matter so much initially because you can make the tubes any length over a certain size you want to. But these tubes here are roughly 2.5 or basically like 63, 64 millimeters long, 2.5 inches long. The inside diameter, this is important. You guys are thinking, well, he keeps talking about what's not important, and he finally says something that's important. I better listen. The inside diameter of this dude is about 1, 2, 3/8 of an inch in diameter. It's really closer to 5/16, but somewhere between 3/8 and 5/16 should do just fine. So the first thing we're going to do for this particular deal, I have made some little plugs. And the reason being, our eagle whistles that we make that look like eagles, I don't use plugs on. And these guys are going to get to use my special measuring tool. See little marks? And what I'm going to do is push it down until it's right to the edge of that little black mark. And you guys are thinking, okay already, well tell me how long the black mark is. The diameter of this tool doesn't matter. So the depth that we just pushed that plug down into is roughly 28 millimeters or 1 1/8 inches. So 28 millimeters deep or 1 1/8 inches. This little cheap Harbor Freight caliper. I don't have my special fancy brass one out to show you. I should have brought it, but this guy here works great. I say cheap. It's cheap in price, not cheap in quality. It does fantastic. It'll tell you exactly how deep this is, which is kind of cool. That's what that's for, by the way. So we've got that one pushed in, and guess what I'm going to do to make sure that it doesn't come out? One little drop. If you are using super glue, and honestly, I recommend using like Elmer's glue or wood glue or any cheap kind of glue you got. If you're using super glue, keep in mind cyanacrylic glue puts off a vapor, especially when it contacts wood or some foreign substances. It reacts with wood, and any of my chemistry buff friends out there, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is turning the wood into a wood ester, and then we're getting type of an alcohol coming off of it mixed with the acrylic gas, which is really not good. It's that close to being cyanide, but not really cyanide. So don't get afraid of this, otherwise I wouldn't use it all the time. And yes, I know what cyanide is. So that was the first plug we put in. We put that one on the tube that's going to be on our right side. I really should mark these guys. I'm going to mark this one here. The one with the mark is the right side, because this one is going to be a higher pitch than this side. If you notice my little marking tool, 2 lines. One line is shallower than the other line. This line is deeper, so this one would create a larger chamber. That's what we're about to do. We'll take this other plug and push this down into here, and push it down. Make sure your plug fit before you started pushing, otherwise if you're using sawgrass or even a drinking straw, you may crack it. And we're really close there. There we go. How about that? Perfect. So we use the second measurement on the left side, which if you're looking at it, let me look at it with you. This is your left side and this is your right, but when you're holding it in your hand, this is the right and that's the left. So, believe me when I say, this is going to be your right side, this is your left side. The right side is shallower than the left side, which is deeper. Now, using super glue again, little drop. You don't want to get this stuff in your eye. I'd recommend not even using it, especially if you're a home novice. Is that a word? Jesse's making a funny face back here. Anyway, if you're... I'm trying to think of what word I was trying to make up. Anyway, let's just call you novice from now on, since I made that up. So if you're at home doing this, I honestly would recommend using wood glue or Elmer's glue, something like that. Just simple school glue, you know, something like that. You're making 100 bajillion of them, this is the stuff. This will save you time. See those bags under these eyes? They're going to go away soon, I promise. Back on schedule. Anyway, so now we've got these 2 chambers, and guess what? I think I can take my clamp off. They're not really super strong right now, so keep that in mind if that's the way that you glued yours together. I recommend putting a bead of wood glue, which I will do once these are done. So right now we have a measurement over here, which I've given you already, and the measurement over here I don't believe I have, so let's do that. Let him stand up and let that glue dry. The second depth, the deeper side, otherwise called the left side of this tube, needs to be approximately 37 millimeters, or let's see, 1, and instead of counting backwards, I'm going to say almost 3/4 of an inch. How about that? So 1 and almost 3/4 of an inch. Go with the millimeters if you have to, but just don't tell anybody I told you to do that. Okay, so that's what this tool is all for. You set him aside. We won't need him anymore for the rest of this video. The next thing we're going to do is go back and address the sizzling sound that you hear back here. And although we know this guy here is my right chamber, I'm going to put a hole up here approximately there, which I'll measure for you in just a second. So we're going to put a little hole right here. 1. See if I got enough heat to put a second one. Not quite. I'm going to turn my fire up a little bit, so if you guys hear the sizzling anymore, I'm going to say turn my fire up. It is incredibly hot out. Our viewers in India are thinking, yeah, he doesn't know what hot is. It is really hot here, though. And it's humid, too. Crazy humid. You can see it in the air. There's actually a film kind of like 100 yards out. It's gray and blue looking. Kind of weird. Miss living in the trees. Okay. So I haven't really finished this hole here yet, so I won't give you the exact measurement just yet. Okay, doing the second hole. All my friends that like our eagle whistles and all those of you who have purchased one, thank you so very much. I want to tell you this. Those cedar ones are the best. They are fantastic. They are made in fire like a phoenix. I mean, they're ready to go. But I think these sawgrass ones sound louder. I like these better myself. Probably because it's something I work on all the time. So let's go ahead and measure it. The distance from the mouthpiece area to the center of either one of the holes should be the same, around 12 millimeters, otherwise known as a ½ inch. So basically from right here to right there needs to be about a ½ inch, or excuse me, from here to the center here needs to be about a ½ inch or 12 millimeters. Same over here. And you're welcome to reverse engineer this guy and decide how far this needs to be away from that plug-in side, but it's so much easier to measure it this other way. Believe me. And the next thing I'm going to do, put my little patented slant on it. It is not patented, so you guys can use it. Been making flutes like this forever and ever. Used to make flutes in my sleep too. I don't do that anymore. Tell you what, dreaming about flute making will drive you nuts. These days I just wake up and they're made already. Little joke there. They're not made when I get up in the morning. Oh gosh. Some thousands of them out, but you guys are thinking your hands are in the way most of the time. They may be. Whatever you do too, don't use your finger to put out a fire if the sawgrass or other material catches a fire. It gets very hot. These little stains on your fingers like this. That's scary. Anyways, so I think that's got that part. If you wouldn't mind turning off the fire for me, I'd appreciate it. Now you can hear me better, right? Anyway, so we're going to put our little plug in. Once again, the plug is designed to fit the chamber, roughly 3/8 of an inch in diameter, or whatever size millimeter that is. You guys and your millimeters. Anyway, so we're going to do that. We put one little plug in, we're going to put the other little plug in. This one's a little bit loose. Let's see if I change them out, if that helps me. Hey, that's even better. Let's see what happens. Two plugs, like I say, a little bit of a slant, and I could give you a little bit better explanation of what this is. Once again, the length of this one's about an inch, but it's not really necessary for me to measure because you're going to cut half of it off. But if you started on an inch, and it's an inch long, that is, like so, and your diameter is about 3/8. If it is, instead of being 3/8 right here, if it's more like that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/16 exactly, and then back here in the back, it is about 1/8 of an inch. Going, simple math here, guys. And that's not really simple math, but anyway. So if it's 1/8 of an inch up here and 5/16 of an inch over here, and it's an inch long, you can figure the slant on that and do the math and figure out the angle if you really want to. But honestly, you don't have to. I like to use my brain cells for a lot of things, and that's, figuring out stuff when I don't have to is really not one of them. But anyway, so just get you a nice little slant on it. Push that guy in, and where I'm pushing them into, this might be important to you too. You can experiment a little bit, push it down further, pull it out some, but I usually put it right at the edge of the top of the hole here. So that should help you. Let's see what happens. Some other things I can do to make it louder, like use my little burning X-Acto knife tool and burn it out a little bit more. That helps some, but that's really it. Pretty good little eagle whistle, and there you have it. And not exactly my design. I have borrowed from old designs there. I'm not bringing out an eagle whistle to put on camera for you, sorry about that, but I just thought I would take the opportunity to help you learn how to make that kind of thing, and I hope you enjoyed the video. you have any questions, always feel free to shoot them to us on email or put them under here on YouTube on our comment section. We do check those and answer them as often as we can, as long as we don't miss one, which we do sometimes. Sorry about that. Always go to our website or Facebook page, the best way to contact us. But YouTube's good too. Anyway, Charlie Mato-Toyela signing out. This is for Blue Bear Arts and BlueBearFlutes.com, and happy flute and whistle making.